Here's what I know so far about this property. It is an on the market deal and it's fairly priced. It's not excessively overpriced, but it's also not a screaming deal. And so this is marketed to be a finish the flip. Flipper ran out of money and somebody can come in and buy it, finish the flip, put it on the market. Now, that's an immediate red flag to me because most experienced real estate investors will do whatever it takes to get it to the finish line, because the difference in the profit that you can make from almost to the finish line and to the finish line is a humongous difference. And there's always ways to get money to finish a project if it is simply just finishing the project. Just think about it. Lenders will lend on that if it truly is just a few $1,000s and the project's finished, because that's a pretty safe deal at that point, depending on what position they would be on the loan and such. But I always think there's some way to do it. So the fact that this is getting sold as an almost done, I'm already looking for signs. Apparently, somebody has talked to the contractor that's done the work there, and they said, maybe this quote has been misquoted to me, but what they said was it should pass roughs easily. And I'm thinking, does that mean that rough ends have not been passed yet? Because if that's the case, we have a serious problem. And the video I have here is a video sent from a real estate agent. All right, so I'm obviously seeing a lot of yard work that's going to need done here. First issue I see is that looks like the sewer line coming out of the side of the house. And the grade, it looks like it's barely going to be able to be below ground unless we bring in a lot of dirt. I'm also wondering what all this rock and concrete is in the yard. Okay, obviously lots of grading to do here. All right, here I see a pretty big issue that the grade is up pretty high in the back of this house. And so the rule is that you need 6 inches between where the siding stops and the ground starts. Otherwise you have a problem. And I don't really see any way where that's going to be possible on this build. You'd have to bring the ground up past the siding. And actually, if you look at the back of the siding, you can see the discoloration of the siding. This could actually be from rain. I'm not sure if those gutters are functioning. It could be the rain splashing up to the back. But I would think that they maybe just moved the dirt off of there. I don't know. Who knows? But there's no doubt that the grading is going to be huge, a huge issue to make that work. I suppose what you could do is you could dig out, a few feet behind the house and then put a retaining wall in. But I mean, you're asking for trouble there anyway. I don't know how that would possibly pass a final inspection like that. Got to finish the gutters, obviously. Okay, this is set up for HVAC. Nice big fat protrusion through the wall. Whatever, that's fixable. Condensate. Okay. I can't tell here, but is this paint splatter on the ground here? And if it is, I'm thinking then obviously that vinyl siding has been painted, which I would want a closer look at that, because usually those jobs are done crappy and people will judge that when they're looking to buy this thing. Or if you're holding it as a rental, I doubt it will hold up that long. Okay, nice of the realtor here. She's showing you that it's not just the nice new building or whatever work they're doing across the street, that there are some older homes. I think she's doing that without saying it. Smart of her. I would just note here that, like, the concrete has been painted. There's obviously been people tramping around there with paint and or drywall, and it seems like those things would be easy to clean up, but they're usually not, and there's always some kind of residue unless you repaint. Not a huge deal, but it's a deal. I'm also wondering, with that sewer line coming out of the house, is this a septic or is there sewer at the street? I'm going in this video and I'm not seeing any manholes on the street. So generally, if there's a septic, you're going to see manholes on the street. Not seeing those, so that is leading me to think that it's probably on septic, and I wonder if that's been inspected yet. You know, a big thing in this purchase is going to be about permits. Okay, I did just catch a glimpse there of the meter, and it looks like we're set up for underground power. I would want to make sure that those underground lines have been inspected, because it looks like they're covered at this point. Maybe they're not covered. Definitely need to have been inspected. And this also goes back to the thing where whoever said that the rough-ins should be able to pass. That means, have they not yet? Okay, I just hate this trim to the floor job. Now, you know, sometimes you would run the floors as far as you can and then put quarter round over the top. It seems like this place probably had trim off and then they added new trim, because you can see that the drywall was freshly textured. If I look back, I can see that. And so if it was textured, they most likely had the trim off. So I would have really liked to see the flooring go up to the wall and then the trim gets put over the top, instead of now you're probably going to need to put quarter round down. That's a big no-no. That also tells me something about whoever was doing the work here. Also increasing my red flagness. Sorry if the person that did the work is watching this video. Here is a concern as well. They have some vaulting going on with the ceiling, and there's also some beaming that happened here. You know, this post is in the middle of the wall, or the middle of the floor, because there was probably a wall here at some point, and they did some sort of structural job. Once again, going back to the rough inspections, and even like something like this might require an engineer's letter. And so the lack of that would concern me deeply. You can also see that this post is the post is underneath the beam that then goes to the top of this window. And the thing is that is a fine thing to do. You'd really have to beef up the header on the top of that window, because you're holding whatever that beam is holding. And it looks like there's only like 6 inches between the top of the window and the bottom of that post. That is not beefed up. I would imagine that did not get inspected. Maybe it did, but I don't know. I'm a lot of red flags once again. Also, I haven't seen any crawl space access on the outside, and I haven't seen any on the inside so far. So this posting that they did, if you're really holding up a lot of weight, you're going to need to post down, and in between the floor joists, you're going to need to do squash blocking to a post that goes all the way to a poured footer. And if there's no crawl space access, there's no way to check that, i.e. then it probably wasn't inspected. And also at inspection, there's no way they're going to allow the lack of a crawl space access unless they overlook it. And that is talking about codes enforcement inspection. You'll also have the home inspection when you go to sell the house, if you're selling the house, and they're definitely going to highlight the fact that you can't get into the crawl space. Now, maybe somebody would buy the house even though there'll be a big red lettering on that inspection report that says couldn't look in the crawl space, meaning couldn't look at most of the stuff on the inspection. Home Depot cabinets, if I've ever seen them, maybe Lowe's. But I do not dog that. I use those all the time. Okay, wow. What a span on this beam. What is that, 15, 20 feet? Obviously, it's hard to tell with this video. But 15 to 20 feet, there's two ways to put a beam in. Either you flush mount, meaning you cut up into the ceiling, and that way you can't even see the beam there, or you drop mount it underneath the joist where you can see it. All right, so it's unlikely that it's like half and half, half flush mounted and half drop mounted. You wouldn't cut kind of into the ceiling. So that means that it's probably fully drop mounted, and that there's a 15 span with what looks like probably 2x6s, maybe 2x8s. Now, it could be a steel beam, but once again, all right, so with steel, you can go a lot further with a much squattier beam. However, I just, no signs here. These are the things that I would want to investigate further. And for sure, showstopper, this should have been inspected at rough-in. If it has not been inspected and now it's covered up, we have serious problems. Same thing with the window here. Okay, actually this gives us a little more insight. A little bit more. Stop right on the window. All right. I have to say that does seem more like it could be up to 10 inches here, maybe even more. So that is more ideal. They could have gotten something in that wall that is sufficient. They would also likely have to, you have your header, and then you have your jack studs and king studs. You would most likely need to put extra kings and jacks to hold that size of beam up, or that size of header. Beam, header. A beam over a window or a door is a header. And just catch a glimpse right here of what looks to be an attic access. 21 inches by 30 inches is the required opening for attic space access. That is certainly not that. That, however, might be some sort of air return or air ducting. I have noticed that the ventilation is coming from up top, not in the floor, which also concerns me about the crawl space situation. But that could be a vent. If it is the attic access, that's going to be a problem. Is that an old tub that is dirty as F? And is it cleanable? If not, all that would have to come out to replace it. Okay, not seeing any glaring issues with the plumbing. Okay, we got this electrical, which looks to be all right. To meet code, you're going to need AFCI, GFCI, and or combo breakers. These do look to be those type of breakers. There are some that are not, but not too big of a deal. What I have not noticed throughout the whole entire house are any inspection tags. Not a single one. That is what I've been looking for. So, but this does look pretty clean. But it doesn't really matter if it hasn't been inspected from the start. They haven't seen what's inside of the walls, and that's going to be a problem. Okay, note that this looks like it's going to be a bedroom of some sort. It's got low ceilings. Obviously, there's the A-frameness, but also, a door height is 80 inches, so that looks to be like 7 feet at its peak. So 7 feet at the peak, only worse from there. Looks like a lot of the electrical trimming has been done. All right, this is interesting here. You got what looks to be a half bath setup. Before we get into that, I do want to note that I see a spigot on the sewer line, which would indicate that they were trying to do a water test. Water test is required to pass a rough inspection. So if that has happened, we should be able to find signs of it, i.e. there should be an inspection pass tag, or we could reach out to the city. Okay, now we're getting back to the whole layout thing here. Okay, there's going to be a washer and dryer up in this room. That would indicate that this could be a master suite that they're trying to put on, but there's not really space for a shower or tub. I mean, there is space if they would have set it up right, but it'd be an odd thing because of the low ceilings. So let's just say that it's just toilet and vanity. And the weird thing is that stub out for the water line is really odd in comparison to where the sewer line for the toilet is. That seems like it'd have to be moved. And I would say that at one point they had planned to put a tub on the back left corner of this room. Otherwise, it seems like they would have the toilet in a different location. Another possibility for the attic access there, but once again, not big enough. And they're working on fire alarms, which seem to be hardwired, which would indicate that they're trying to pass a final inspection. Just not enough evidence to know exactly what's happening here. As I've stated throughout the whole assessment here, this off-site scope of work, I'm really concerned about the permitting situation. I'm instantaneously red flagged because investors rarely sell before they get to the big money, especially if they're this close, which starts to make me think that they're not actually that close. It just looks like they're that close and they're trying to find a sucker. And some of the things that further those red flags are the grading issues, where it's not, without some major work, we're not going to be able to get the dirt 6 inches off the siding unless this video is totally warping the reality of how that ground sits to the wall, but it didn't seem that way, specifically on the back of the house. Also, how the sewer line comes out of the house, it doesn't seem like it can be very low below grade. I have seen no indication of any permit tags throughout the entire house, no permit posted on the house. And then the whole structural framing and no access to the crawl space thing seems like that wouldn't have gotten this far in the project. So I'm furthered with my concern that a rough inspection hasn't actually been passed, and we're going to have problems when we go to try to get the final passed. Like things like this happen on projects often because a contractor is trying to get paid. And so they keep taking the project further than it should go so they can get to their next paycheck. And then, you end up with an almost finished project before you figure out that you're kind of screwed and the city's going to make you open up walls to show them what's going on. And then in most cases, the contractor that got you in that situation certainly didn't do the things right enough to where you're not going to have to tear out a bunch of stuff and have to redo it. So what may look like got to put a few $1,000s into it and then it's ready for market could be more like got to put $50,000 into it before it's ready for market. I've seen that happen before. Okay, so if the inspections have in fact been passed and we are that close, I'd say that we still have some serious grading issues to go. We still need to put gutters, downspouts and get the water off the house. There's still a mechanical, electrical, plumbing trim out. Got to do something with the trim. We got to do countertops. We have to put the plumbing, fixtures, final fixtures in. Hardware on the cabinets. We need to likely do paint touch-ups. I didn't see a hot water tank. Probably got to bring some gravel in for the exterior. I mean, you're still likely looking at maybe $15,000 worth of work, depending on what they have in there. Maybe less. Well, that's not true. We still have appliances. There's no appliances in there. There's no backsplash, depending if you want a backsplash, but I would want a backsplash. I mean, I got a basically updated spot and there's no backsplash, and that's a cheap, big feature add. I hate that you have to come in the back door on this house instead of the front door. I don't like that the ceilings are not 8-foot ceilings. There's that section that's vaulted, probably illegally, and the rest is 7 foot, and that's no good. Even at the main part of the house, it seems to be 7 foot or close to it, not a full 8. So the first step here would be figuring out with the city if rough inspections have or have not been passed. I think that's a showstopper. And then if it has, then, figure out if 15 or 20 grand makes the deal work.